Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived on Monday at the UN Climate Summit COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, ahead of his participation at the landmark UN gathering. The president discussed upon an invitation by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in light of Egypt's leading role in regional and international climate discourses in order to shed more light on the importance of COP26 and Egypt's participation in it, represented by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Very important participation due to Egypt's pivotal role in the region. We are very much delighted to have with us over the phone Dr. Khalid Hassan, Climate Change Counselor. A very good day to you, Dr. Khalid. Dr. Khalid, can you hear me?
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Dr. Khalid. Now, how do you see the importance of COP26 being held in Glasgow now and Egypt's participation in that event?
Of course, any conference or meeting or summation about the climate change in the world and how can deal with this problem is very important for not only for Egypt or Africa but for all the world, because as you know, we have many previous agreements and summit and conference about climate change, and we declared many issues, but in actuality, nothing is applied until now. For example, most developed countries until now not obey for the limited their emotion until now. This from one side. Also, the assistance developed or applied for developing country to enhance their economy and go directly for the green economy. It's not applied until now. So we have many submissions before, but until now we didn't reach to a solid agreement is able to be executed all over the world.
Yes. Dr. Khalid, how do you see Egypt's efforts in solving the climate change crisis on the regional and international levels?
The role of Egypt in absorbing the problem of climate change is very acceptable and it's very good impact until now. For all the most of the new activities in Egypt will apply our assertion to have some sort of green economy in all activities for industry or construction or agriculture. So Egypt has applied many things in the world in the direction of green economy and limitation of climate change and emotion in the world. Also, Egypt has been conference before, and we put what you can say strategy for Africa to combat or to deal with the problem of climate change. But what is we need is the cooperation of developed countries to apply these strategies and the programs all over the Africa. Because as you know, the economy of Africa, it's not support them to apply this strategy alone. And also we should to remember a very good, a very important fact that most of the emotion is awarded responsible. The responsibility of this emotion lie on the developed and the most developed countries exactly.
The president is expected to focus on the topics of concern for developing and African countries especially, and also boosting efforts to push international climate action forward, and also to ensure commitment by industrial countries to their pledges made in the framework of the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Accord. How do you see Egypt's efforts in this regard, Dr. Khalid?
I think in the meeting, the current meeting, Glasgow, I think Egypt will play a very good role in presenting the activities of Egypt and Africa toward the applied green economy and to limitation of the climate change effect in Africa, and also will present honestly the all obstacles face Egypt and Africa in applied more programs and strategies. And I think the most important thing is the financial approach. If we reach to agreement between developed and developed countries, including Africa in the developing countries, and the United States, European Union, and China in the developed countries, I think we can reach to equation, financial equation to work together to compete the climate change.
Dr. Khalid, you mentioned now the financial aspect of the problem, and the richer countries fail to meet the 100 billion US dollars annual target for climate finance by 2020, while poorer nations like India, for example, they want more cash to move past their reliance on coal and other fossil fuels. How can we solve this problem?
Exactly. Although the big number you mentioned now, but it's very, very limited to compete climate change all over the world, especially in developing countries. And regarding to the, this is not a very big deal, but most of the developed countries not apply their share or not pay their share to compete the climate change in the developed countries until now.
Sir, the President will also add emphasis to Egypt's bid to host the upcoming session of climate change meetings. What are the chances for Egypt to host this very important event next year?
I hope I will reach to get this point, and I think the strategy of Egypt is very optimistic, and maybe we hope to have, as you mentioned, for the meeting, the last hope, the last bit hope. We hope to reach good cooperation between developed and developed countries, and Egypt pray good Lord in this in the future 2022 and 20 also.
My final question to you, sir, what are your expectations for this very important event, the COP26 being held in Glasgow now? What can we expect to be the outcome from this very important event?
I expect and I hope to agree for the minimum minimum size of emotion in the world, and each country to be applied her share in this strategy. This from one side, and from other side is increase the financial support to the developing country, and most of the developing country paid what their share in this aspect.
Yes, I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Hassan, Climate Change Counselor. Thank you very much for being with us. And to remind you again, ladies and gentlemen, of what we have been covering so far, this is a very special coverage of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's participation in the UN Climate Summit, COP26, being held in Glasgow, Scotland. As a head of this is part of Egypt's participation, and this participation comes upon an invitation by the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in light of Egypt's leading role in regional and international climate discourses. The presidential spokesman, Ambassador Bassem Radi, said that the president will focus on topics of concern for developing and African countries in particular, on boosting efforts to push the international climate action forward, and also to ensure commitment by industrial countries to their pledges made in the framework of the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Accord. The president will also add emphasis to Egypt's bid to host the upcoming session of climate change meetings, and he will also be holding talks with the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on issues of mutual concern. The event is bringing together more than 120 world leaders, including US President Joe Biden, and they are being welcomed to Glasgow for the climate conference that was launched yesterday and will run for 12 days. The summit comes a day after G20 economies committed to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the most ambitious target of the Paris Agreement. How to get to this target was left largely undefined, with richer countries' failure to meet $100 billion annual target for the climate finance by 2020. At the same time, poorer nations like India want more cash to move past relying on coal and other fossil fuels. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a very special coverage of the UN Climate Summit COP26 being held in Glasgow, Scotland, which is attended by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We'll be updating you throughout the day on the latest developments of the event. I'm Helal Hamalawi. Many thanks for being with us.
Egypt opens up to the world. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with world leaders.
وأعبر لكم عن خالص الشكر والتقدير على فوت الاستقبال وكرم الضيافة.
Reaffirming vision, delivering our voice abroad.
لتطوير التعاون الثنائي العسكري إلى مستويات غير مسبوقة.
Discussing regional and international developments. Solid and strong relations on the path of partnership and development. Egypt opens up to the world. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with world leaders.
وأعبر لكم عن خالص الشكر والتقدير على حفاوة الاستقبال وكرم الضيافة.
Reaffirming Egypt's vision, delivering our voice abroad.
لتطوير التعاون الثنائي الاقتصادي والعسكري إلى مستويات غير مسبوقة.
Discussing regional and international developments. Solid and strong relations on the path of partnership and development.
Cairo, time for the hour's top stories with me, Al Hamalawi. President Abdel Fattah Sisi on Monday arrived at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, Scotland, ahead of his participation at the landmark UN gathering. President Sisi's participation comes upon an invitation by United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson in light of Egypt's leading role in regional and international climate discourses. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the president will focus on topics of concern for developing and African countries, in particular on boosting efforts to push international climate action forward and to ensure commitment by industrial countries to their pledges made in the framework of the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Accord. President Sisi will also add emphasis to Egypt's bid to host the upcoming session of climate change meetings. President Sisi will be holding talks with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and other heads of world states and governments over bilateral relations and other issues of mutual concern. More than 120 world leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden, are being welcomed to Glasgow for the climate conference that was launched on Sunday and will run for 12 days. The summit comes a day after G20 economies committed to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the most ambitious target of the Paris Agreement. But how to get to this target was left largely undefined, with richer countries' failure to meet a $100 billion annual target for climate finance by 2020, while poorer nations like India want more cash to move past their reliance on coal and other fossil fuels. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida declared victory on Monday after his ruling coalition won a strong majority in national elections, vowing to boost the virus-hit economy and take a leading role in Asia's push towards carbon neutrality. Kishida, a soft-spoken centrist who has been in office for a month, said that he would set out plans for a pandemic spending package this month in a bid to revive the world's largest economy. Before heading to the COP26 summit, his first international engagement as Prime Minister, Kishida said that he was to climb targets set by Yoshihide Suga. The long-ruling Liberal Democratic Party (LDP) and its junior coalition partner Komeito won 293 to the 465 seats in Parliament's lower house. The coalition had previously held 305 seats. Ladies and gentlemen, those were the hour's top stories. For more details and updates, join us again at 3 p.m. Cairo local time with a new edition of Panorama News. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi and I'll see you then.
Gentlemen, to this special coverage of Africa Today, where we're covering President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's current visit to the United Kingdom. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi arrived on Monday at the UN Climate Summit COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, ahead of his participation at the landmark UN gathering. President Sisi's participation comes upon an invitation of the United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson in light of Egypt's leading roles in regional and international climate discourses. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Raji said that the president will focus on topics of concern for developing and African countries, in particular in boosting efforts to push international climate action forward and to ensure commitment by industrial countries to their pledges made in the framework of the landmark 2015 Paris Climate Accord. President Sisi will also add emphasis to host the upcoming session of climate change meetings. President Sisi will be holding talks with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and other heads of world states and governments over bilateral relations and other issues of mutual concern. Now, dear viewers, we will go to this report and we'll be right back.
Everyone, not leaving anyone behind.
I would like to live in a world where every young person feels like they can be part of creating positive change, because only together can we create the change.
Spokesperson Ambassador Bassam Raji said that Sisi's participation in the conference came in response to the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's invitation in light of the important regional and international role Egypt plays within the frame of climate change negotiation. Raji said that the president during the conference will focus on the topics that concern developing countries in general and African countries in particular, especially with regard to strengthening efforts to advance international climate action, as well as emphasizing the need for industrialized countries to abide by their commitments within the framework of the Paris Agreement on climate change, as well as emphasizing Egypt's aspiration to host the next session of the Climate Change Summit next year, 2022. The presidential spokesperson added that the program of the president's visit to Britain will include holding talks with Boris Johnson to discuss strengthening bilateral relations, which have witnessed a qualitative leap in recent years, in a way that achieves the common interests of the two countries, as well as continuing consultations and mutual coordination on a number of regional and international files with mutual concern. The president is also scheduled to hold a number of meetings during the conference with a number of heads of state and government in order to discuss advancing bilateral cooperation frameworks, as well as consultation and exchange of views and visions on various regional and international issues.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and now we will move on to our special reports. In a year's time, Egypt will follow the same pursuit when it hosts the 27th session in Sharm el-Sheikh. No doubt it's an opportunity and a responsibility combined. The COP is the decision-making body responsible for monitoring and implementing the United Nations framework on climate change. More details in this report.
We'd be in a position, or even next year, that we're not going to use any more oil or gas, that we're not going to be engaged in any fossil fuels. We're going to stop subsidizing those fossil fuels. We're going to be making significant changes. And it just makes the argument that we should move more rapidly to renewable energy, to wind and solar and other means of energy. But the idea that we're going to end and somehow, but it does on the surface, I admit to you. We're going to COP to deal with renewable energy, and I'm saying, why are you guys cutting off oil and raising the price just to make it look harder for us? But it's a legitimate question. I think, though, that if anybody thinks about it, no one ever thought that tomorrow, for example, it's going to take us between now and 2030 to have half the vehicles in America electric vehicles. So the idea we're not going to need gasoline for automobiles is just not realistic. But we will get to the point that by 2050 we have zero emissions. That we have tax credits of $320 billion.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and we're glad to be joined over the phone by Dr. Wafi Nosser, member of the International Parliament of International Environmental Affairs. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
Well, Dr. Nosser, the Climate Change Summit is being held today with the participation of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who is set to address the negative impacts of climate change on developing the African countries with regards to the climate change issue. What is your take on this, sir?
Yes, it's a very important summit, and we have been waiting for this since last year, but due to coronavirus, it has been delayed. So we are expecting, and I'm emphasizing expecting because we don't know yet what is going to be the result. So we are expecting good news and all the partners, because it's called Cooperation of Partners, COP26. So we are expecting that the partners will agree on reducing the emissions, the carbon emissions, so that the Earth doesn't reach 1.5 degrees centigrade.
Sir, how has climate change negatively affected the African continent, the greater bearer of climate impact? And how has climate change's impact been evident on African states this year?
Of course, my opinion that Africa is the worst continent that will suffer from climate change. Due to desertification, the lack of water, the shortage of agriculture, and of course the death of species, animal species, especially in Africa. Many are in danger. So Africa needs a lot of financial support to start adapting with climate change, and of course to start new projects in renewable energy and planting many other trees instead of the lost in the forest, and many other issues, the lack of water, it has to be rearranged, and of course in Egypt and all the north of Africa, they suffer from the rise of seawater level, so we need protections for our shores and so on.
Right. Well, sir, how are African countries supposed to adhere to their climate pledges amid the tons of economic hardships they face and in the aftermath of a pandemic that is already taking its toll on every aspect of life there?
Yes, of course, Africa is one of the poor countries, and we need financial support. There is, because we are not affecting in the climate change, but we are affected from the climate change. So rich countries were supposed to pay $100 billion in this summit. So we have reached 79 billion so far. So we need to increase that. And hopefully there will be an agreement at the end of this summit, which will be about 2 weeks from now. Otherwise, the agreement will be on the next year summit that will be held on Egypt, COP27.
Yes. Well, Dr. Nosser, the environment minister attending the climate discussions in Glasgow, said ahead of the summit that Egypt is pressing forward with renewable energy projects to reduce climate change. Now, how far has Egypt progressed to reach this end?
Yeah, we have seen the biggest solar energy plant in Aswan that Egypt already built, and we have already built wind farms for wind energy farms in Hurghada, and we are doing a lot of projects, like, for example, lining the irrigation canals, and Egypt is doing a lot of in the transportation by transforming to renewable energy for most of its public transportation. And Egypt is going forward in the green economy. But we still need financial support to work in this regard.
Right. Well, Dr. Wafi Nosser, member of the International Parliament for Environmental Affairs, many thanks for joining us. And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this special coverage. Many thanks for watching.
Dust. Orbiting around one star amongst 400 billion. We must consider ourselves and our world to be inconceivably valuable.
With her poem written for COP26, we are joined by writer, performer and storyteller Yersa Daly Ward.